Thank you, Nada, very, very much for this kind introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all today. And first of all, I don't know how many of you know where we actually physically are. So you have to take yourself back in time. We are on the Darb Zubaydah. The Darb Zubaydah, that was this amazing pilgrim route that brought people from Kufa all the way to Mecca, this incredible journey that people would make for Hajj. And this wonderful space that we are in is a recreation of one of the cisterns. So it's not a well, it's a cistern which would gather the water and which would be needed for the pilgrims, for their long journey and for their animals as well. So it's wonderful really to be here and with all of you and to be here with this absolutely fantastic panel. It's a huge privilege, really. So the format is really as follows. I'm going to introduce them to you, and then they are each going to give a short presentation about their work, and then we will have a conversation between all of us. But this is very much about you as well. And so we'd like you to, as they speak, we'd like you to start saving up your questions and ask them lots of questions. Because calligraphy is something that we all absolutely love. So what is calligraphy? Calligraphy is the art of fine writing. And there is no finer writing than Arabic calligraphy. Even just to say hello, you can write it in the most beautiful way possible. And so what we have here are 4 wonderful people who use calligraphy in very different ways. And we're going to start with Dr. Nassar Mansour, who is a professor of Arabic calligraphy and Quran manuscripts at the College of Islamic Arts and Architecture in Amman. He is a master calligrapher with a PhD from the Prince's School and the University of Wales. And it was a huge privilege for me to be one of his PhD examiners. Because what he did, and I'm sure he'll talk about it, is that he kind of refound, as it were, that's not the right word, you'll correct me what the word is, the amazing script, muhakkak, and he then published it as a book. And Nassar and I, in the days when I was in the British Museum, we did a wonderful exhibition together, which was called The Making of the Master. This is something that we're going to touch on today. And one of Nassar's students is our next speaker, Dr. Alka Bagri. And she's an art historian with a PhD in Indian miniature painting. So we're going to find out what took her from miniature painting to calligraphy. And since 2013, she is a trustee of the Bagri Foundation, which supports projects in museums and elsewhere. And it's a truly remarkable foundation. Huge congratulations on what you do, Alka. And then we're going to move from Alka to Lulwah Al-Homoud, a wonderful, wonderful artist. She studied internationally recognized. She studied at St. Martin's. She is not only an acclaimed artist, but she's also a kind of activist, if you like, in the field of cultural relations. She was a recent recipient of the Rawabi Prize in 2020 for her really the relationships she fostered between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the UK. And her work has been acquired by numerous institutions, both, can you hear it? Sorry, it's kind of squeaky a bit. Numerous institutions, both public and private. And I'm very pleased to say that in the British Museum, one of the proudest acquisitions was actually to have some of the work that she is going to, the language of existence that she'll talk to us a little bit about today. And she's the foundation of the Lahad Foundation in Riyadh. And finally, where you see how we're moving, we're spreading out now because Waleed Arafa has started life. He has an MA in Islamic art and architecture from AUC in Cairo. He has a diploma in conservation, historic architecture, but he has also a BSc in architecture from Ain Shams University. He's an award-winning architect. And most recently, finalist for the World Architecture Festival Beautiful Prize of 2020, and he's the founder of and principal of the Arafa Architecture in Cairo since 2006, I believe. So welcome to you all. So before getting on to the meat, as it were, I want to just ask you a quick question. The theme of this topic is calligraphy as inspiration. So I want to ask you that question. What does calligraphy mean to you? Nassar, your starter for 10.
Thank you, Venetia, and really I'm very glad to be here. Calligraphy means to me three things: love, life, and faith.
Calligraphy to me is a way of learning life skills. Balance, control, just enough, stability, beauty, grace, and above all, silence.
Calligraphy for me is the gate to spirituality. It's what developed my spirituality and took me to another level, really spiritually, through research.
Waleed. No, nobody can hear you.
Yes, it's now loud. To me, it's the in between the objectivity and subjectivity, heaven and earth.
That's really wonderful. That's a fantastic start here. So, can you hear me? I just have to keep asking you because we're getting this lot of interference. We have to remember that actually we are in the Hajj terminal. So in addition to being in Darb Zubaydah, and there may be the odd plane coming across. So now I want to start with you, Nassar. You're going to show us a few slides. And I hope that you're going to be able to evoke for us that whole thing of learning calligraphy yourself and the kind of pain that involves, because we're also going to talk about that with you, Alka. So shall I show your first slide then? And you tell me when you want me to move on.
Thank you, Alka. It's very interesting that I didn't choose calligraphy. Calligraphy chosen me. I started with calligraphy. My journey with calligraphy started from early age. I just found myself inclined into the beauty of handwriting, the beauty of calligraphy, the beauty of the shapes of our Arabic writing. It's something that took me into it, and I can't leave out. Now it became my whole life. Calligraphy is in every single day of my life. So that's why I said it's love, life, and faith. So this is one of my calligraphy pieces, which is the 99 names in square Scophic. This is one of the scripts that I love to practice all the time, because it's not like other scripts of calligraphy. It doesn't need you to use the pen to produce something like this. It's based on square, geometry, and design. And this work is influenced through or from the Kiswat al-Kaaba, the cloth of Kaaba, because the cloth is black and there is one frieze and band running around the Kaaba cube. So that's why I made the middle line in gold. The upper two and the lower two are in dark ink. Yes, please. This is my ijaza, which is the first serious stage in my life with calligraphy. Before that, I was practicing calligraphy. Then I made my master degree about the tradition of ijaza in Islamic calligraphy. So I did my research as an MA thesis. At that time, I didn't have an ijaza myself. So I said that, what a big shame that I'm writing about ijaza and the tradition of ijaza, and me myself, I don't have it. So I decided to go to to start practicing calligraphy from scratch with my master Hassan Chalabi in Istanbul, and it took me up to 5 years to complete it, running between Amman and Istanbul, coming and going, sending before having emails, I have to send all my practices to my ustad through post, and it took him sometimes 2-3 months to return it to me. So after that long process, I achieved my ijaza, alhamdulillah, in 2003. And this is the panel, and you can see the two sides at the bottom. They have the text of the ijaza, where my ustad granted me the ijaza, which means a permission for me to sign my artworks and also to teach calligraphy. Okay, this happened when I started my PhD degree at the Prince's School. At the first beginning courses there, I was introduced to geometry. So the first and fundamental, geometrical patterns is the circle of creation. And it inspired me to do my cone work, which is now at the permanent collection at the British Museum. So it's just as simple. I just design it through my experience and knowledge of Kufic based on geometry. Yes. The second stage in my journey with calligraphy, it's with muhaqqaq. My PhD study at the Prince's School was about reviving one of the most important scripts in Arabic calligraphy, which was muhaqqaq. It was abandoned from the 16th century. It's not been practiced anymore after that for more than 500 years. So it just inspired me to start searching and researching about muhaqqaq, and alhamdulillah, I did the first PhD about muhaqqaq, first research about muhaqqaq, not just a historical research, it's also to practice it and to bring it back into practice and to be available for calligraphers now to practice it, to know it, and to know about the background of muhaqqaq, and also to know about the proportions and methods and rules that controls muhaqqaq. Please. Okay, another aspect I touched with my practice calligraphy is to move from 2D artworks like calligraphy panels into sculptures, 3D. So I did the first sculptures for me in Amman. It was an outdoor monumental artwork that was in 1998. And this is one of my last pieces that you can see it in my solo exhibition at Wasl Gallery here in Jeddah. Yeah, and this is what you insist.
I insisted that you put this in.
Yeah, this is like a line in muhaqqaq says, Wallahu waliyu tawfiq, and every success must happen through support of God. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to see Nassar's exhibition in the Serafi Mall, it's absolutely stupendous. I would really, really urge you to go and see it, because you see some really beautiful examples of Nassar's work. Really mabruk to you, Nassar, for this fantastic exhibition. So now, thank you. So now, Alka, we're going to get to actually the practice itself, because what Nassar didn't touch on was the agony, in a sense, of of learning the script? I mean, I remember when Nassar, when we did that exhibition together, and he showed me these practice sheets that, as he said, it was before email, and he was sending them by post to his professor, Professor Chalabi, and they would come back, and sometimes I'd look at them and they would look utterly beautiful to me, but he'd put a little red mark, a little tiny thing, so that little top of the noon or the lamb was obviously like a quarter of a millimeter too high or too low, and that sense of dedication, practice and practice, is something that I've admired hugely about those who embark on calligraphy. So tell us about you, Alka.
So very tough. It took me, well, Sar did not even accept me as a student for 6 months. I was relentlessly emailing him and he wouldn't reply, and that was the beginning of the frustration. Finally, he did, and then started the practice, and he sent me one letter, Alif. I said, what kind of practice is this? I'm just going to have to do this one straight line. But it took me 3 years to get that one line right, not always still. And in those 3 years, I think I went completely mental, because when my tamreens went back for marking, he would not reply for months. And my frustration just knew no limits. And I used to just think this is a very strange way of learning, because if your teacher is not going to reply, I started so late in life, I'm going to need more than one lifetime to get anywhere. But it was not till much later that I realized it was a test of impatience. And I now understand it, of course. Also, to build a rapport with your teacher long distance is very, very difficult. You know, when your teacher is there with you, literally you can see the movement of his hand, when the nib goes down, when it goes up, the flow of ink, the light and shade, when does he pause. It's really, really hard when the work comes through an email. But Nassar's marking is so perfect that it leaves me in no doubt where my mistakes are. And the other frustrating part, of course, is that to me it looks lovely. It's, you know, I've written it so beautifully. But when it comes back, it's just got markings everywhere. And then it says, one more time, please. But the one more time doesn't end. I have done that one more time over and over and over again. But I think it is really, really important to go through that grind, because if your foundations are strong, and yes, it does take time to lay the foundations, you can then fly. But that initial few years was extremely tough.
Shall I move the slide on for you?
Oh my God, my dreadful slides.
No,
Please
but
have a look.
So, Alka, what was the script that you then focused on?
I think we have to start with Rika, which is their everyday writing script, which I personally find very difficult. I was calling the pen a brush for the first 6 months. I had no idea. I'd just come out of a class on arabesque painting, so I could only see a brush. And Nassar would not reply to me. He said, what are we talking about? I said, well, how do you cut the brush, and how do you make the brush, and how does the ink go on the brush? He said, it's not a brush, it's a pen. So it took me 6 months to even get that part of it right. And as you can see, I can't even hold it straight. It was all over the place. And of course it is frustrating, because I went into it thinking it's going to be so easy. I mean, it's so terrible that I'm almost embarrassed now. But it's important to see, for anybody who wants to ever learn, that this is where we all start. I mean, we always see final works of masters, but I think we all start here.
Next one.
Yeah. This is a slight improvement. And I've got a well done, Alka. You can move on. Just move on, yeah. I think just as the idea of all of this is to just show progress, which really does come with, you need 30 hours in the day to practice. And I've had a lot of gaps in my practice, and when there are those big gaps, I really go back, and I have to almost start from the beginning. So it is painful, but it's extremely rewarding when you get it right. And I think it's a very noble thing that I feel I'm doing.
So what are you doing here? What are you...
So this is Diwani, and you can see that I've got most of them right. There are 2 mistakes here. And so I have to do the mistakes. I have to rewrite it. And calligraphy is very unforgiving, because if you make a mistake, you can't correct it. There's no way to rub it. There's no way to do it. The tendency is to go over it. That's even worse. So you're literally starting all over again. Yeah, he said well done. I'm showing you all the good slides.
Do you, Nassar, do you use the traditional way, afarin, do you say? The traditional way of saying well done.
Yes, he does write it in Arabic, and then he tells me what it is.
Afarin?
We changed the language, because the language was when I
don't think it's working.
when I
It's not working.
when I practiced with my master in Turkey, the terms were like afrin. This is the most or the ultimate excellent expression that means move to the next exercise. So afrin. But I'm an Arab. I have to say something Arabic. So I said ahsanti or masha'Allah. So that means also, it means like a translation of afrin, the Ottoman expression, into an Arabic term. So
Thank you. So,
I just want to say one thing, that I don't come from the Muslim world. I grew up in India. I'm Hindu. I don't know Arabic. I cannot read it, and I cannot understand it. I am only copying my teacher. It doesn't matter to me what it says, because I see this purely as an art of lines and curves. And my interest, how I see it, is just how tension is built and how it's released and how the letters get resolved. And if you just go back one slide, and I'll tell you one example. What's that letter at the end? The ba, right at the end. Nassar demonstrated this in the class, where he kept on doing the bowl of the ba, and it wasn't stopping. And I said, well, how do you know when to start turning your pen up? Because at that point we hadn't learned how to measure. And he said to me, your heart will tell you when to take it up. And for me, that was so revelatory, because that is how I see it. And I work with my eye, and I count afterwards. And I work with when my heart tells me to stop or start. And so for me, yeah, it's all about just the sheer beauty of the shapes, not the language.
thank you, Alka, so much. That's lovely. So I think that's a very nice... so we're going from the heart and the beauty. Lulwah, tell us about your work.
I have to say that I wanted to be an architect, but that didn't happen because my family did not allow me to travel at the age of 17. But I studied something else, and then I moved to art and design. And when I went to St. Martin's, there was always something mysterious about calligraphy that I was so drawn to. And I proposed to research in calligraphy, and I was actually accepted because I said that in my proposal. So besides how calligraphy is beautiful, and that line, that relation between thin and thicker lines and all that, I was more interested in the geometry of calligraphy, the geometric rules behind calligraphy, the proportions. And when I did my master's at St. Martin's, I wanted also to do, it wasn't enough for me to talk to calligraphers because I didn't find enough references at that time. And I was telling you, Venetia, that you were one of the people who guided me when I came to you when I was doing my master, and you showed me how the word into art became so important in contemporary art. And that changed my subject more towards what can we do to letters to be more and just push it. So I actually approached Rashid Bhat and told him, I want you to teach me calligraphy. So I sat with him so many times. I understand your frustration and I understand how painful it is. And he asked me, do you want to be a calligrapher? And I said, no. I just want to know the rules. I want to know, when do you put the pen? When do you take off the pen? What is the relation between, the letter and the dots and everything? So it was actually part of my research, because I talked to calligraphers and I talked to artists, and I wanted to know more about the practice itself. And it taught me a lot, not only the practice, but how humble calligraphers are. It taught me how great this art is, because it's not about you. It's about another dimension. You're not present in the time or the space you occupy. It's actually beyond that.
Lulwah,
So-
can you tell us about what are we seeing on the
So
screen?
I came across also the Vedic square, because at the same time I wanted to know the relation between geometry and calligraphy. And I came across the Vedic square, and I'm sure you know what the Vedic square is, because it comes from North India, and it's a Hindu's tradition. And Muslim artists actually used it as one of the ways to create geometric pattern. So I wanted to create a relation between that and the circle. So it's the square and the circle. So the circle basically is Ibn Muqla, and the proportion scripts.
Would you like the next slide?
So what I wanted to do, as you see, I put the aleph in the circle on that square and on that number. I'm not going to go technical, because it's a 9 by 9 grid that has a multiplication, and it has also Kabbalistic reductions. You only can have just one digit, and you can't have more than one digit in that square. So by putting every letter inside that square and circle, I just wanted to know the relation between the numbers and the form of the letter, to create maybe a new code for each letter, for each Arabic letter. So here is what I got by joining the numbers for each letter. So then I have a new code for each Arabic letter. So this is the whole alphabet all together, superimposed. Now that was inside the circle and the square, and that is the finite. But I wanted to talk about something more than the infinite. I wanted to talk about the finite. The infinite, sorry. That was the finite. So this is the infinite. The infinite is God. So I decided to take that language and create different artworks. These are actually the names of God. So I created the names of God out of that language. So each of these has, for example, that one is a salam, so it would have alif, lam, sin, lam, alif, mim. Shakur, so it would have only the letters that were in the circle and the square. And now this was from the Biennale last year, in the Contemporary Art Biennale in Riyadh. So after 21 years, I finished the 100 names. Of course, Allah is the 100 and the 99 descriptions. So this was actually at the London Design Biennale, where I created a more 3D work as well, by creating an illusion sphere. And there was just, through mirrors, I just created a sphere.
Thank you.
So I have to say that I was also inspired by Ahmed Mustafa a lot. I really like to remember the people who taught me so much. And Ahmed Mustafa was one of them, because I did not only learn from him about Ibn Muqla, about the things that I didn't know, but he also inspired me on how to be spiritual, and the thought was very inspiring to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's lovely to see this. You make such beautiful work, Lulwah. Really, really congratulations to you. And it's so lovely to think of that link with I love the fact that Rashid Butt asked you, do you want to be a calligrapher? And you just said no. You went to a top calligrapher and you said no. So that's really amazing. And but also that tribute to Ahmed Mustafa, one of the great calligraphic artists. But also, Waleed, for you, Ahmed Mustafa is inspirational. And I know you're going to talk to us about him as well. So I'm going to move on to your
Thank you very much.
attempt to, yes.
Yeah. Ahmed Mustafa is my relationship with calligraphy. By the way, he calls it Arabic penmanship. I have to mention that, otherwise I'll get punished. So my relationship with Arabic penmanship starts when I met Ahmed Mustafa in 2006. And he was at the time writing his book, The Cosmic Script. I had many questions as an architect, as a human being, also as a Muslim, questions that relate to my faith. And what he explained to me kind of gave me answers or paths to find answers in all of these fronts. So in architecture, we're riddled with so much dichotomies, like either ors, objective, subjective, topological, architectonic. And what I learned from him when he explained or what he has to say about the theory of Ibn Muqla is that they're one and the same. So for instance, all the qawalib or the molds of the letters are very orthogonal. They're 90 degrees and everything, and suddenly from this sprouts something very topological. And so, long story short, 10 or 15 years, actually 2006, and then in 2016, so 10 years, being very close to him in his studio in London while he was writing his book, I got commissioned a mosque in Egypt, in Upper Egypt, in a village 500 kilometers south of Cairo. And 10 years, this has been intense in my head. I mean, obviously studying architecture, you know what a proportion system is to architecture, but this was a very particular proportional system that has very cosmic correspondences. You can find it in many mediums, in creation and all of that. Obviously, we all know about the golden ratio, or al-nisba al-fadila in Arabic. And so this transpired into this mosque, sometimes in literal manners, like, or not literal manners, in more obvious manners, like the use of thank you very much, the minaret, for instance. So we know in the Arabic letter shapes, the point or the dot, al-nuqta, is the DNA. 7 of them makes an alif, which is the yardstick, and then every other letter shape is described one way or the other through the alif. And again, talking about dichotomies, muntasib or qa'im, or perpendicular or upright. This was one thing that he was describing in the alif, and that captivated my mind so much, and which created this. So this is a more obvious reference. And also the top here, which is the cube of cubes, which we can see here, which is the three-dimensional dot. And of course there's so many details, but that has a proportional system that formed the mosque, that formed the dome, which is less obvious here. But then you have the minaret, you have that, if we go with the pictures, you'll find the mihrab. And I'd like to tie that to what Dr. Nassar said, because it's also about meaning and faith. It's not just beautiful forms, because that takes us also into the idea of what is beauty. It has to be relating to meaning. So for instance, a qibla, which is what we orientate ourselves to in ritualistic worship, and it has the 99 divine attributes, which is our moral compass, how to become good people in life. And so this is the cosmic part where everything corresponds, geometry with meaning, with everything. We can go further to the next slide. So this dome, for instance, which is created by what we can call little dots, but then and it follows the golden angle, and it creates this interaction with nature. Well, I wish we had more pictures, but I mean, we can. People can look that up later. We can go to the next one. So here, this is obvious. This is a direct reference to how the whole place was formed based on this idea of the cube of cubes, or the nuqta. And then also how this understanding, like in Lulwah's work, for instance, you have the same, you're coming from the same principle, but then the manifestations are infinite. Each one has his own nafas, his subjectivity that doesn't negate the objectivity. We can go to the next one. Of course, it was scary. I was designing this while I was living in his house, and I wasn't sure whether he approves of this understanding or not, but thank God, he does. Sorry?
He's very tough guy.
Yes, he is very tough. We can go to the next one. Yeah, and I think that's the final, it's a close-up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So thank you, all of you, for your wonderful presentations. You've just given us snapshots of the importance of the script and what it means to you. Now, do we have some questions? Anita, yes.
Thank you so much for this beautiful presentation and talk. Thank you for this beautiful talk, and thank you to all panelists. I will not consider myself as a calligrapher, but maybe junior or beginner. But I met one of our teachers, Dr. Zaki Al-Hashmi. I believe you all know him. And he saw one of the writings, and he said, I see the writing, it has a spirit. We all can see that there is a lot of calligraphers and there is a lot of writings, but not all of them has a spirit. So my question, I don't know if there is an answer for this question or not. What will make a calligraphy or a writing has a spirit? What is the secret behind this spirit in this writing?
That's a very beautiful question. I think we start.
Thank you very much. Zaki is a good master, a good teacher, and he's a friend of mine. You know, when you see something really beautiful, probably it's simple, but it has beauty. That beauty came from spirit. Sometimes calligraphers practice calligraphy and practice it like a technique. So you follow the angle rule and the proportion and the size of the letter, and you follow everything. But when you finish your writing, it's nice, but it's not eye-catching. It doesn't have spirit. It has to come from inside and outside. It has to come from practicing and also from love inside. So I remember I read one of the quotes by Ibn al-Bawab. He said that it's the most important to keep practicing until you are in love with the calligraphy. It doesn't matter if you are following the proportions or measurements, or it's just like ihsas, senses. And in my exhibition in 2017 about who, I started my artist statement with a brief, a short, says Al-Khat إحساس وليس مقياس. Calligraphy is a sense, not a measurement. So that makes it with spirituality, that with music.
Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. Now, yes, we have a question there. Is there a mic somewhere close by? Thank you very much.
Hi. Thank you very much for your lovely presentation. Just wanted to ask a question. Actually, I've been told about it, and there is a lot of relationship between the Arabic calligraphy or Arabic letters and the spiritual side. The fact that Quran is being written in Arabic. And I hear that, like, I don't know, there is like the first word, which is, the first letter is Alif in Arabic. And it's also the first letter in Quran, because in Quran it said Iqra is the first word. And I hear that, you know, actually Alif is the reflection of the pen. When somebody is holding a pen in Arabic, the reflection of the pen is the word Alif. So it's always a mysterious thing for me, is that a relationship between spirituality and the Arabic sort of calligraphy and Arabic letters, and when does it actually came about? Because we know for sure, like, you know, suddenly this beautiful language and this beautiful calligraphy just came in just a little bit above, like, before Islam, and it became kind of like it has it's a course by itself. You look at all the other, like the Thamudis, the way they write, it's totally different. Arabic is it's like, it's one of these Semitic language, but it has a beautiful spirit to it. So I just wanted to ask, is there any relationship between this kind of spirituality and the, you know, the division of everything? Thank you very much.
Can I answer that? So it's a very, very interesting question, that because of course before the coming of Islam, there was no script. There wasn't really no Arabic script, and there was this script that was used by the Nabateans, and, you know, a little bit, but there was not, the Arab culture at that stage was not a writing culture, it was an oral culture. And the most important thing that happened was with the revelation of Islam, it was very important that the words of God be recorded. And so what happened was that the script that existed in this form, in this Nabatean script, essentially, which is the direct precursor, then was adapted very quickly to write Arabic. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is that the status of the calligrapher was immediately high, because what they're writing are the words of God. Those are the first writings. So that connection with spirituality is right there at the beginning. Would you agree?
Yes. Thank you, Venetia. That's right. And also adding to what Venetia just mentioned, that this connection between Quran and writing, because writing is the visual, it's the visual of the words of God. So we know God through words. Prophet Muhammad said that أنا لا أقول ألف لام ميم حرف وإنما ألف حرف ولام حرف وميم حرف وفي كل حرف 10 حسنات والله يضاعف لمن يشاء. So that means that Prophet says that I don't say that Alif Lam Mim, which is the opening of some verses or chapters in the Quran, that these are one letter, but Alif is a single letter, Ba individual, and Mim is, so there are 3. And with each one, Muslim rewards, when he say it, he got 10 hasana, 10 benefits, and God give more. So Muslims, when they receive these commands and instructions from the Prophet, they believe that it's for reciting Alif Lam Mim, they will get a high reward. So what about writing it in beautiful and in a nice way of writing, just purifying, making the words of God beautiful? That's enough to connect or make this connection between writing and spirituality, ruhaniya.
Thank Thank you very much. And we don't have very much time, but I really want for Lulwah to comment on that question.
I would like to add also that the Nasr script was not good enough to write the Quran before it was proportioned. And the first Nasr after Ibn Muqla was written by his student Ibn al-Bawab. The first Quran ever written in Nasr was by Ibn al-Bawab, which exists in Chester Beatty Library in Ireland. So before that, it wasn't good enough. It was only used for letters, but not to write the Quran. After it was proportioned, and it became نظرية الخط المنسوب, and then it was good enough to be written for the Quran.
Thank you. Waleed, would you like to comment in any way? Then we must wrap up in
I would use what Alka herself said about how she views as someone who doesn't speak Arabic. So obviously the design brief that Ibn Muqla worked with, or Ibn al-Bawab, or whomever, was that they wanted to create a visual that would carry, I would not say beautify the words of God, they're beautiful in and of themselves, but to carry the beauty of, that are worthy of carrying the beauty of the word of God, and which are accessible to everyone, not only those who can read Arabic. So when you deal with them as forms that can speak to the eye of every creature, then that is, I think Ibn Muqla succeeded in doing that.
So Alka, just finally, because for you it's a spirituality in a different way, as that is so wonderful, the way you expressed it to me yesterday when we talked.
You know, when I first saw calligraphy was many, many years ago, almost 25 years ago, when I was studying Islamic art, and it popped up in one of the mosques. I had never ever seen anything like that. You know, it looked like a jumbled up some design, but it did something to me. I don't know what happened, you know, it's almost mysterious. We use the word ghaib, you know, it comes from somewhere, some unseen place. And I had studied all ancient civilizations, so it wasn't that the first time I was seeing something of beauty, but something happened in my body, and I just had a thought, and I said, I think I'll find out more about this, or I'll learn it. And subsequently, I began to notice it everywhere, in ceramics, in textiles, and so on and so forth. And then I was studying, so I forgot about it. It's only now that I feel what actually happened was that geometry connects, or at least in my case, connected with my own cellular geometry. You know, it's the same thing. You are one tiny part of, you know, a bigger universe. And this is something I understand now. I didn't 25, 30 years ago. And then I went and studied philosophy after that. But for me, the experience of it was far, far greater than any text that I've read. So even though I don't understand, and I think if I knew the language, it would definitely add another dimension. There is no two ways about it. But the experience of that, it's there regardless. You know, a language will add more meaning to that form, but experiencing the beauty of that form is at another level completely.
And I think that idea of being part of a bigger universe is something actually very, very important, and a very good moment to close. And I think, Alka, you've got work to do learning Arabic. I think that's that's your next project.
I tried and I failed.
I hope you have somebody who responds to you a little bit faster. Anyway, I'd like you all to join me in thanking our absolutely wonderful speakers who've given us such insights today. Nassar, Alka, Lulwah and Waleed. Thank you all so much, and thank you for being such a wonderful audience and bearing with planes and all the rest of it. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Thank you so much.